Kevin's a tough act to follow, you know, someone who sold his company for $1 billion, you know, interviewing the CEO of PUBG. I can't obviously come near to that, but thankfully today we have the movers and shakers of esports in Southeast Asia here with us on the panel. So first of all, we have Ronald Robins. Join me in welcoming Ronald. Founder and CEO, Mineski Franchise Corporation, ex-professional Dota player. He runs teams, cyber cafes, I think a few hundred of them. Some of the biggest events in Southeast Asia. And in my opinion, one of the largest esports organizations in Southeast Asia. Thank you for joining us today, Ronald. We have Chris Tran, Country Manager, Southeast Asia for Riot Games. Chris, they don't make Dota, they make League of Legends. Chris is interesting history. He used to be a consultant, and then he moved to become country manager for Riot in Vietnam, and now he just moved to Singapore, just signed his lease and rental, and he's stuck now in Singapore as head of SCA. And last but not the least, we have Sze-Meng, Vice President Business International for Singtel. Give it up for Sze-Meng. Sze-Meng's got an interesting background. He used to be from payments in Visa, and then he was last country general manager for PayPal for Hong Kong, Korea, and Taiwan, and now he's head of all content, including gaming and esports for Singtel. So thank you guys for joining us today on the panel. And before we start, we're going to play a quick video from Singtel. Can we have the video, please?
Here we go. Down to my half HP backline here. Asshole Bulldog getting focused. He wants ending. First blood. Dominating. Oh, what a crit! For the thrill! There's no glitch! They power! S4's gonna try to charge to the right side. He won't make it there, but then. Do it! They're gonna do it! Lion Queen!
Laser sharp focus, split second reflexes, raw stamina, high stakes. Now, Ronald, I can understand, you were a pro player who's entered industry, you've been in it for more than 10 years and all that. But Chris and Sze-Meng, you guys came from finance and now you're in esports. What's going on? Was it really that bad in the corporate world? Tell us. I mean, yeah.
Do you really want the answer to that question?
Of course.
I think things are good everywhere, but I think that Sze-Meng, myself, and Ronald, we're kind of blessed in that not only do we get to work in something that we love, but we get to make things that other people love and enhance that passion and just make, you know, like create a lot of intangible value for a lot of people all around the world, right?
Yeah, Sze-Meng, the transition.
No, it's been amazing. Like sports, games, gaming has been a fast-growing sector. But it's just amazing how much we have seen our user base. So Singtel is not just in Singapore, but Singtel Group, as you can see just now, we have our associates or partner telecoms companies like Globe in Philippines, AIS in Thailand, Telkomsel in Indonesia, Airtel in India, and of course Singtel in Singapore, but Optus in Australia. And as a group, we really see the growth of gaming. I think over 1/3 of our users are playing games, as you can see from our data. So we're talking about 200 million people like, actively playing games. And that's just simply amazing.
200 million people in Southeast Asia actively playing games. Ronald was one of them, and you've stayed in this, and both of us were two of them, right? And you stayed in this.
I still play, man.
You still play, right? And for more than 10 years, you know, what keeps you in esports? Like, why so long? Yeah.
Well, when we started way back 15 years ago, there was nothing in the region for us. Basically, we have to go through the basic life struggle with your parents of telling you stop wasting your time. There's nothing in it for you. And I was determined at that point in time that I will make sure that there will be something for all the other gamers to follow. We want to bring the global esports scene into the region by actually excelling at it. So in regards to what we did the past 15 years directly reflects that kind of vision, bringing Southeast Asia to the world.
Bringing Southeast Asia to the world, which is why recently there was a partnership announced between Mineski, Singtel, and Razer for this tournament called the PvP Championship. And Sze-Meng, that was a super awesome video. You know, give us a bit more color. Why did Singtel decided to enter esports, and what are some of your plans like moving forward? What can we expect?
Yeah, I think you can see there's an evolution when non-endemic brands like Singtel, actually other brands like Mercedes, McDonald's and all these are also entering into the space. I think for us, there are a couple of reasons why we want to really be part of the community and to be involved in the community of gamers. So of course, there's a growing base of people in games, and we're not just talking about casual games. Actually, many of you might know that 14 of the top 15 Android games in the past year has really been kind of the core games, like your AOV types of games, rather than just your normal Candy Crush games, which is obviously Candy Crush is huge. My wife plays to 3,000 level, but I'm just saying that it's really important to think about games no longer as just casual. I think the second driver, if you think of it, you look at your phone right now, all of you have one or you are looking at it, the capacity of the phone, the network that is connected to the phone. In the past, if you want to play certain caliber of games, you have to go to your PC, you have to be connected by LAN. But with the reliability of 4G and the upcoming reliability of 5G, which is going to be 100 times faster, your phone is just going to get better and better as time passes. Mobile game is just increasingly becoming more and more important for most people. And then last but not least, content continue to play a very important role for many of our partner telcos, especially in many of our big, large markets like Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, India, when content really drives a lot of differentiation for why people choose a certain type of operators. Obviously, us being number one in these markets really suggests to us that we see content as a very, very important play. So why we are doing PvP esports? I think there are two things. One is that we want to really bring the region together and to produce the type of content that is really very distinctive. That's number one. But number two, I think back to the theme of this whole conversation, building the esports ecosystem. If you can see just now, some of you might glance that we actually have a lot of partners, obviously not just, in addition to Mineski, we partner with Garena, Valve, we have SPH on board, we are partnering with TikTok. There's a lot of opportunity to kind of work together to serve the gamers, to serve the community, and also to produce the right content for everyone to enjoy.
Working with many partners to build an ecosystem for esports. I'm going to go to Chris. Your designation says Country Manager SEA. Is SEA really a country? Does Riot really know about SEA, about the region? Are you sure you joined the right company? Tell us more about what Riot has done. And
how many questions are there, right? So I think that we need to, there's a title and then there's a job, right? And so the title is just something organizationally that's not so important. But my role and Riot, we aim to serve Southeast Asia, which is one country like a rainbow is one color, right? You've got monarchies, you've got democracies and everything in between. You've got, Buddhists and Muslims and Catholics living together in harmony. And to do what we do, to create a game where young people can express themselves, connect to each other, and then also find meaning and value in what they do by being competitive is what what we are honored to do. And to do that, we look at this region with curiosity, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that we don't know, and that's what's part and parcel and amazing about what we do, in that we try to take something that resonates with players globally and try to tailor it across the whole region, so that instead of having just vanilla ice cream, we have, you know, your strawberry, your chocolate, your vanilla, your durian, your matcha, etc. So,
yeah. Just now Ralph was on stage and he talks about ESL filling up arenas. Dude, you guys, Riot, you fill entire stadiums, right? Tell us more about your, I mean, like Sze-Meng mentioned about working with many partners to build an ecosystem, but you guys seem to be able to do everything by yourself. Tell us more about how you grow your communities and your ecosystem.
I think, so today is September 10, right? And so it's good to talk about the recent past, which is August. So our August was August 4th and 5th. We worked with, you know, MCCY, NYC here in Singapore to sponsor Hyperplay with MTV, which is a celebration of esports and music across 10 countries. So during that time, we saw you know, great stars like Nick Jonas and Alessia Cara. And Alessia Cara, who won the Grammy Award for Best Emerging Artist, said, gamers are sometimes looked down upon, and it's beautiful when gamers get to do what they love and are celebrated for that. And just to watch how that partnership with MTV developed so that we could, you know, like bring gaming into popular culture was amazing, right? 2 weeks after that, we were in Manila working with Globe, a Singtel company, and Globe Conquers Manila to put together one of the biggest esports events that ever happened in Manila. You know, I think Ronald did the biggest. And then a week after that, we were in Jakarta for the Asian Games, where we worked together with the you know, National Olympic Committee of Indonesia and all across the region, and the Asian Games Committee to select from 22 different countries representatives in League of Legends to compete for the gold in Jakarta. So we can't do it alone. The world is big. Our players have a bottomless appetite for gaming and esports content, and we can't be the expert in everything, right? Like at the end of the day, right? We are a developer who just loves what we do and loves the people who love what we do. And to do that, we need to work with partners like Singtel or like with Mineski to really help us look around corners, learn what we don't know, and actually do what we cannot do.
So you guys do have friends, and you seem to know what you're doing in the region.
My mom would disagree, but yeah.
Okay, back to Ronald. Ronald, you and I have been trying to kind of like build up the esports ecosystem in the region for a while now, many years now. Maybe you can share some of your views about the ecosystem. What does a thriving and sustainable ecosystem look like to you?
So let's start first with having the end picture so it's much easier to understand. Each territory or region can be clearly defined on how consistent they are being represented in the global stage. You might find some specific talents that spur out once, but if there's no succession to that, it means something is wrong. So it all starts from grassrooting all the way up to the professional scene of each and every territory, may it be national or regional. So there's a lot of challenges through the way because the industry is actually, there's nobody to look forward to. There's nobody to copy. You have to try, burn, and then see the success and then replicate. So we have been doing Philippines for like the past 15 years. We've been expanding in the Southeast Asian region this past few years, and we're opening 4 more countries the following year. It's really a challenge, as Chris said. Each and every country has its own different flavor. Interests from strategic partners also vary. That's very important. And one thing that would indicate that the ecosystem is healthy is that there's a win-win-win situation. 3 wins for 1, community is happy, they're growing. 2, people who are actually running esports are also sustainable. 3, the investors in the scene or the stakeholders are also getting what they want. So it is very subjective to each and every country on what needs to be done for you to be able to say that there is a healthy ecosystem.
Okay, now we've got the easy questions out of the way. Let's talk about real stuff. Chris first. Chris, you know, recently there was news. Actually, it was Reddit. I'm not sure whether the news, but Reddit, right? Said that Riot seems to be cutting budgets for esports. And I think the Riot head of global esports, Derek, said, kind of said on Reddit that Riot has spent way over $100 million a year on global esports for the last few years, and said that Riot will continue to be will be exhibiting a bit more restraint in certain areas in the near future. What can you tell us? Are we going to expect less from Riot in Southeast Asia in future? It doesn't seem like it. You just mentioned about the big event that you put out last month in Singapore and Philippines and all that.
So one, our friendship is over. I think Riot, we really try hard to be the most player-focused company in the world, which means that we try to be very transparent about how we operate, right? And with serving a very passionate fan base, sometimes they get confused between price and value, right? And $100 million is not a small amount of money, but if you think about it, we are a company that runs 14 professional leagues across the country, right? We have been the standard bearer, one of the standard bearers for esports across the world, and have invested a lot, right? Like 100 million, depending on who you are, maybe not so much to you, maybe huge to you, but certainly something significant. But at the end of the day, we try not to be measured on how much we spend. We want to be judged on how many people enjoy our content, how many people find value and express themselves. And right now, just because a couple of people are keyed into how much we spend and not really looking at how much value we create, that's a conversation that we're willing to have that actually sets Riot apart from other companies where they're a little bit more opaque, right? But we're hoping to, continue to create more value. We're coming off of an incredible August, doing things that we didn't think were possible at the beginning of 2018. We don't want to be bracketed by what people think we should or should not be spending, but we should be judged by what are the awesome things that we can do globally for our players.
Judged not by the amount of money you spend, but by the value you deliver. That's great. And to be fair to you, everyone on the panel gets a tougher question. So Sze-Meng, Singtel is huge. You guys are like the 800-pound gorilla in Southeast Asia, right? When you enter esports, one of the questions like, will you end up like just kind of like steamrolling and crushing over everyone? Should new players even try to bother to enter esports now that Singtel's in the game? How do they avoid getting crushed by you?
Yeah, I think to be honest, we are fairly new to the gaming world. I think that's something that we are very humbly learning from people like Chris, from Ronald, even for yourself, and many of the players, the partners. I think that's the reason why we could, in a very short period of time, we could get many partners to come together, because we think about value creation from growing the pie bigger rather than thinking about slices from the pie. If you think about it, this is kind of the first time a telecom group or Singtel group really started the esports kind of tournament, and then we went ahead and decided to do 3 titles at one time, working with Blizzard for global stock for Hearthstone, Dota 2, and then obviously AOV for the mobile side. Then we decided to go with 6 different markets, all our associates market, Philippines, Indonesia, India, Australia, Singapore, and Thailand, all at the same time. And then we also did multiple formats, mobile and PC. And I really think that this would absolutely not happen unless we work very, very closely with our partner. Mineski is our tournament organizer, so I'm always looking at Ronald and make sure that it's a great success. But also more importantly, we talk to Blizzard, with Valve, with Garena, we also have conversation with Razer. And the thing about, at the end of the day, it's really important that we put the gamer front and center of what we do. If we put the customers, our gamers, and what they want to do front and center, I believe that collectively we can grow the pie, we can grow the ecosystem. Because if you think about it, gaming is just not gaming by itself. The reason why gaming is part of this 5 stream here is that from a consumer perspective, they don't think about, oh, I'm consuming games, I'm listening to music, I'm looking at some digital news. They are just thinking, look, I'm interacting with content, I'm engaging it, and it's really from a consumer lens. That's why Singtel Group also offer hook, music, videos, and other areas besides just gaming, and that's the whole intention. I always believe, I was a CMO for Visa in China before, and I always believe you will put the interests of the gamer front and center and have their focus, have their good intention. I believe this business will continue to grow.
learning, growing the pie together, putting the gamers first, and then working with partners like Mineski. So Ronald gets his fair share of tougher questions to answer. So obviously, Mineski has multiple areas that you play in esports. You have venues. What's the last count on number of cyber cafes you have?
155.
100 events. You have an esports team that recently made it to TI and consistently and all that. So everything seems to be really successful and doing really well. But from an ecosystem point of view, are you kind of like kind of like crowding out everybody else? You're not an IP owner like Riot. You know, you're not an 800-pound gorilla like Singtel. So how do you keep your business sustainable, defensible?
So first of all, we don't have any plans to go into developing our publishing space. That's one. And two, we see 800-pound gorillas to be our friends. So it's better that way. So we work with everybody. As I said earlier, you cannot build an ecosystem by yourself. There are different parties of different interests, and our specialty is to align everybody's interests and reach a common goal. That's what we specialize on.
I like the question that Jesper had just now for all his panelists. I'm going to kind of like ask the same question. Not so much on maybe conflicts, but your favorite stories in esports so far. Maybe does one or two that has kind of like really stuck with you or kept you going, and when the going gets tough, you think about that whole that happened. That's why I'm still in esports.
For me, since I'm based in the Philippines. Recently, we just launched a association that was a combination and culmination of all stakeholders. Being that said, our goal is to make it absolutely inclusive and prioritize the community's interest over commercial interest. We're currently working with POC. It's a local organizing for the Olympic Committee, and we're going to be engaging with some interesting projects that will actually be pivotal to the exchange of values properly within the stakeholders per se. And we're not just looking in just one country, but we're looking at it as a whole region. So we're really excited that a time already came where all somehow competition is now under one roof and everybody has one goal. It's like the Avengers. Everybody's there already. So
the Avengers. It's amazing, right? From Mineski being the dominant player in esports, then now opening up, working on an association and getting all the competitors to come together and work together to grow the pie. To me, that's amazing, and that's one reason why we wanted you to come and speak about building the ecosystem. Chris, any sub stories?
I'm going to say two things. At Hyperplay, I was honored to meet the Deputy Prime Minister of Singapore, Teo Chee Hean. And when I went on stage with him, I just realized just how progressive and how much he himself had embraced esports in pushing Hyperplay and making it happen. And when he was on that gigantic stage, surrounded by thousands of Singaporean youths, and he just yelled out, "Let's Hyperplay." That was amazing, right?
I was there. That was pretty awesome.
And he's really tall. Right? He is really tall. It was amazing to see somebody so important embrace and understand what the future of entertainment is. And then the other moment was at the Asian Games, when there was just, like some of the athletes from the other games would come to the esports side and look around, and there was just like really tall guy that was kind of old, and I never really saw him front on, but I saw him from the back a lot. And then later on that day, my colleagues were like, "Did you see Yao Ming?" I'm like, "Yao Ming?" Like, Yao Ming. I'm like,
not Sze-Meng. Yao Ming.
Not Sze-Meng. Not your cousin. And so apparently Yao Ming had come to the finals to watch the Chinese League of Legends team play against the Korean League of Legends team for the gold. And like, just thinking that I was that close, but the fact that somebody who's not just an icon, but somebody who made history in sports cared about League of Legends esports so much that he came there to watch during the Asian Games was amazing, right? So Yeah, you asked for one, I took
Yeah,
it.
yeah, absolutely. And Sze-Meng, you're obviously pretty new to esports and all that. And any particular story that you think you want to share?
No, I think building on what Chris says, it's just amazing because I think we have the privilege to see the evolution in multiple countries. So some are a bit more ahead in terms of the whole esports gaming, especially Philippines, and some are still evolving, like a bit like India and Australia to some extent, even that there's already happening. But what we consistently see is one, the user base definitely engaging in gaming. But I think what Chris is saying, a lot of the government authorities and also key stakeholders are actually really pushing, or not pushing, but recognizing like gaming, esports, or more gaming is really more and more mainstream. I know that I think some of you might have read while there are parents who are actually giving tuition to their children on Fortnite, which I think is a bit sad, but that's fine. Or like there are esports that are like really big hobbies and clubs in schools. There's a lot of community gaming going on right now, and obviously we need to mitigate the downside of playing too much games. As any other things that we do, right? Too much of a good thing is always not a good thing. But in terms of that whole for those who are not involved or even know about gaming, I'm just constantly surprised how mainstream it's going to be. And I think there is a time in history in Southeast Asia that we are really catching the wave. Imagine a kind of a tsunami. We are really at the crust of catching that wave of people engaging in games, actively participating in it. And it's really, actually really very heartening to see so many of our partners and ecosystem players coming together, really focusing on the gamers, growing the pie rather than trying to compete or trying to step on each other. I think it's a very healthy environment that we are facing now in Southeast Asia. And my hope is that Singtel Group will continue to play a productive and also a helpful role to grow the ecosystem together, because that's the best for everyone, but especially for the gamers.
Yes, Chris.
I have to engage, right? Because it hurt me a little bit, Sze-Meng, when you said that there are some parents that have gotten tutors for their children in Fortnite, and you said it was sad. And I don't think it's sad. I really don't. Like, how many of us have had piano teachers or tennis coaches when we were growing up, right? And how many of us are professional tennis players today, or like professional pianists, right? But to recognize in your child that they're passionate about something, engaging, trying to build some structure around it as a parent who adjusts to the changing lifestyle, I don't think that's bad. I think that's really healthy versus ostracizing and trying to say, oh, don't do that, that's bad, versus saying, what is the value? What can gaming teach you about discipline, about being a good sportsman, about competition, right? Like, these are all things that should be embraced. And a lot of times parents are a little bit intimidated, or would actually just try to push kids back into the, like piano, violin, tennis, et cetera, which doesn't resonate with the kids these days.
So as you can see, our ecosystem partners can agree to disagree, which is a very healthy sign.
Very respectfully.
That's how you get the best of everything.
That's right.
You always have to grind it out. It's never right the first thing you thought it would be, right?
Well, just a shameless plug, in SCOGA in Singapore, we work with the government and with Twitch to have an esports academy, full-time, part-time programs for the gamers to learn all different games and different aspects of the industry. I, for one, would love to learn more from Ronald on not just putting together events and all that, but on Dota, right? You can tuition. Yeah.
We
Okay.
do all games now.
Yes. Well, we're almost out of time, so I just want to end with this kind of last question for all our panelists and this number of people in this room who may or may not be in esports, right? And they're wondering, like, okay, this is great, it's exciting. I'm not sure how I can enter, how I can play, and how can I build a viable business. So maybe we just end off with maybe some advice or tips to our audience on how they can enter, do something in esports.
Esports is growing far faster than anybody is, beyond even our own company. There's always space for people to come in. The only two things that you have to bear in mind the most is to work with the right partners and do it at the right time. With these two, it's going to be beneficial for the entire industry that more investors actually do come in and grow the sport altogether.
Work with the right partners at the right time.
At the right time.
Yeah. Chris?
I think there's a tendency to overthink esports a bit, because at the end of the day, esports is like a sport. You want to see people perform at the highest levels in doing something that you understand, and maybe do things that you cannot do, right? And that's what you see with tennis, you see it with football, you see it with every other sport. Like a lot of us are, marketers or work in media, and when you think of music, just because you like hip hop doesn't mean that you don't understand how rock and roll or country music or EDM or drum and bass, et cetera, work. It's a lot of the foundational concepts are there, and just because it's like there's an E there doesn't mean it's not sports, right? At the end of the day, it is content. It is something that people love to participate in. It is what people will discuss around a water cooler, maybe not in an office, but maybe at a university on a Monday morning. So the tendency to overthink something actually makes it harder for you to engage versus just jumping in and realizing that people are all the same, right? A fan is a fan is a fan. And I keep thinking about like the organizing idea of the event, which is for the fan of it. And if you're a fan of one thing, that enables you to understand another group's fandom.
Don't overthink it. A fan is a fan is a fan.
Yeah.
So just building on what Chris says, the fan is extremely important, but the fan is to me a tip of the iceberg. There's actually a lot of gamers who may not actively participate in esports on a competitive level or even attend the events, but there are a lot of people playing games. And esports is growing, is really important, but there's also obviously the broader value in terms of gaming where you look at obviously the developers, the publishers, you have your distributors, then your gaming, your esports, and then obviously your content broadcast, which we just saw the co-founder of Twitch was being the MC, and PUBG. So actually it's a really, really big ecosystem, and esports is definitely a fast growing aspect of it. But once again, I think it's a tip of an iceberg of a really big thing that's going on. So the tip of the iceberg, we can definitely see that, and it's extremely exciting, but let's not forget what lies beneath it.
Right, not just the fans, because Singtel, you see all the data, you see what everyone's playing, and you see 200 million people in Southeast Asia playing. Thank you so much, Sze-Meng, Chris, and Ronald for being here with us, talking about esports and everything about esports in Southeast Asia. Thank you. Thank you.